You know, there are places we all go that are supposed to be safe. Public washrooms. Utilitarian. You do what you need to do, and you leave. You don't think about them. But after what happened with Peoples, and after hearing the stories from them, I can't see public restrooms the same way. They're not just rooms anymore. They're thresholds. And sometimes, something is waiting on the other side. This happened about 5 years ago. I was a long-haul trucker, new to the route, driving a lonely stretch of interstate through the Arizona desert. The kind of empty where the sky feels like a black bowl and you're the only thing left alive. My eyes were getting heavy. The white line was starting to blur. I saw a sign for a rest stop, one of those old, single-building ones, miles from anywhere. A literal oasis. I pulled my rig into the nearly empty lot. There was one other car, covered in dust, just sitting there dark. The main building was locked for the night, but the external restroom doors, the ones that lead directly outside, were open. A single, flickering fluorescent light buzzed over the men's room door like an angry insect. I pushed it open. It was what you'd expect. Cold, white tiles, the smell of stale disinfectant, and something else, something damp and earthy like wet clay. There were 3 stalls. The first one was filthy, so I went to the last one, the one closest to the wall. I locked the flimsy metal latch and just sat there for a second, gathering my energy to get back on the road. That's when I heard it. It was a whisper, so faint I thought it was the wind at first. It came from the stall next to me. Stall number 2. I held my breath, my whole body going rigid. It was a child's voice. A little boy. He wasn't crying. He was pleading. "Are you my dad?" My blood went cold. I didn't move a muscle. I just stared at the graffiti-scarred metal partition between us. There was no sound of feet, no rustling of clothes. I managed to choke out a reply. No, I'm not," I whispered to myself. "Oh," he said he'd be right back. I yanked my clothes up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I fumbled with the latch, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get it open. I didn't look at stall 2. I didn't look at anything. I just ran for the door. As I burst out into the cold desert night, I heard the voice one last time. Not a whisper now, but clear as a bell from inside the tiled room. "Tell him I'm still waiting." I ran to my truck, locked the doors, and peeled out of that lot. I never went back. But for years, I've been telling you this story. And I don't know why, but I feel like I just delivered his message. The second story, it came from a friend. Let's call her Sarah, who took a seasonal job as a live-in caretaker at an old closed-for-the-winter hotel in the Colorado mountains. The Blackspire Inn. The place was a creaking, Victorian-era labyrinth. Her room was in the staff quarters, but the only working guest bathroom for her to use was in the basement. To get to it, you had to go through the old game room, past a line of dusty, sheet-covered pool tables that looked like a row of silent ghosts. The bathroom itself was a time capsule. Black and white hexagon tiles, clawfoot tubs with curtains, and a single wooden toilet stall at the far end. The first week was fine, but then things started to change. She'd be in the stall and hear the main bathroom door creak open. Then, the sound of footsteps. Not normal footsteps. They were shuffling. Slow, deliberate, like someone in wet shoes dragging their feet across the tile. As Sarah, whispering hello, "Is someone there?" the shuffling would stop. Silence. Then it would start again, getting closer. Shuffle, drag, shuffle, drag. It would stop right outside her stall door. She would stare at the gap at the bottom, expecting to see a pair of feet. There was never anything there. One night, the fear peaked. The shuffling came in faster this time. It stopped outside her door. And then she saw it. A single drop of dark, reddish-brown water dripped from the top of the stall door onto the floor in front of her. Then another, and another. Terrified, she did the only thing she could think of. She shoved the stall door open with all her might, ready to sprint. The bathroom was empty, completely empty. But the floor was wet. A trail of wet footprints led from her stall, not to the exit, but into one of the clawfoot tubs. The old floral print curtain was drawn shut. She didn't wait to see what was behind it. She ran and never used that bathroom again. She found out later that decades ago, a guest, an elderly man who had suffered a stroke, had drowned in one of those tubs after slipping and hitting his head. The staff found a trail of water leading from the bathroom, but he had been alone in the hotel that night. The question that still haunts her, and now haunts me, is what was he trying to do? Was he just looking for help? Or was he trying to get into her stall? The final story is the most recent and the most sinister because the monster in it was all too human. It comes from a university student we'll call Mark. His campus was on edge. For weeks, there had been reports of a peeping Tom in the library's women's restrooms, a shadow under the stalls, the sound of quiet breathing. One Tuesday night, Mark was pulling an all-nighter on the 4th floor, the silent study floor. It was past 2 a.m., and the floor was deserted. He needed to use the bathroom. The men's room was locked for cleaning, so he made a decision he'd soon regret. He checked the hallway, saw it was empty, and slipped into the women's restroom. It was dead silent. He went into the last stall, did his business, his heart pounding with guilt. As he was about to leave, he heard the main door swing open. Heavy footsteps, not the quick, light steps of a student. These were slow, confident. He froze, panicking. If he was caught in here, he'd be expelled. The footsteps walked past the sinks, past the first stall, and stopped right outside his. He saw a pair of men's work boots, caked in dried mud, stand directly in front of the gap. The person just stood there, not moving. Mark held his breath, praying it was security and that they'd just move on. Then, the man knelt down. Mark couldn't see his face. The gap was too low, but he could see the top of a baseball cap. And then he heard it, a low, wet chuckle. It wasn't a sound of amusement. It was a sound of satisfaction. The man stood up. Instead of leaving, he did something inexplicable. He slid something under the stall door. It was a small Polaroid photograph. The footsteps then walked away, the bathroom door swinging shut. Mark's hands were trembling so hard he could barely pick the photo up. It was a picture of him, taken from outside the library window earlier that evening. He was at his study Corel, head down in a book. He never heard a shutter click. He never saw a flash. The peeping Tom wasn't just watching women. He was hunting, and that night, in his territory, Mark had become the prey. The police found nothing. No fingerprints. The photo was clean. The campus security cameras on that floor had been mysteriously disabled for a 15-minute window. Mark dropped out a week later. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those work boots, that chuckle. The message was clear. I saw you. I can always see you, and I know where you study. The official reports still call it a peeping Tom case. But Mark knows, and I know, it was something much, much worse. And he's still out there. A ghost waiting for a father who never returned. A drowned man forever shuffling through his final moments. A predator who uses our own fear and shame as a weapon. 3 stories. 3 public restrooms. Places of privacy that became stages for terror. I look over my shoulder now, every time I push one of those doors open. I listen for whispers, for shuffles, for a chuckle that doesn't belong. And maybe after this you will too. Because the most terrifying thing isn't that these stories are true. It's that they're not over. The next stall might not be empty. So don't forget to subscribe AI Storytelling White Yes for more videos.